going on, Star Wars fam? I'm your bro host, Daniel Miller. Next to me is my bro host, Chris Ryans. And welcome to the Broaxium Covert with special guest, Ethan Sachs. What's going on, Ethan?
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Good, man. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, this is
My
awesome.
pleasure.
Yeah. So, this week, the first issue of Starlight Cruiser, Halcyon's coming out. What I think is awesome is, because it's like you and Will Sleaney do the the attraction comics, like for Marvel Star Wars. I think that's dope. And I remember in one of my in one of our quick shots when we talked about the Galaxy's Edge book, I said something to the effect of, "Is it an ad for the comic? Oh, for the attraction? Yes, but it's a really good story." So
Right.
And that is the same with Halcyon. So yeah, you mind tell us a little bit about Halcyon and
Sure.
how that came about?
Sure. Well, as you might have guessed, it was because of Will and my track record with Galaxy's Edge. This is unique projects because it's not just working with Lucasfilm and Marvel; it's also working with the Imagineers. The people behind these incredible experiences down there. So, Galaxy's Edge sort of paved the way. We know how to work with, everybody. They're familiar with our work. So yeah, it was kind of, and to be honest, Will and I went down 2 years ago when Galaxy's Edge came out. We went down. We were invited down by Disney to Disney World to do a signing and do some talks right when they were opening.
Nice.
First Galaxy's Edge, and then I came down again for the Rise of the Resistance.
Nice.
And yes, and very proactively, Will and I were already lobbying for a sequel because they announced that they were making this, Galactic Starcruiser hotel experience, and right away, because we were there with the people, we're like, oh, we have some ideas. So we started shamelessly plugging ourselves to do it again. Right then when we didn't know much about it. So, fast forward, and as we got closer, it was obviously delayed a little bit because of the, unfortunately, events on this planet.
Yeah.
So we basically got to work a few months ago on this, and it's always a pleasure to team up with Will, my brother from another mother.
Nice.
So he, it's fantastic.
It's pretty cool because, the Star Wars ships, they've gained so much, throughout the generations of Star Wars movies and stuff. Like, they've gained so much popularity, and people will just love, the droids and the characters and the ships, like the Falcon and the Ebon Hawk from the Old Republic, and they've all had their own status by themselves, just the ship alone. And being able to see this Halcyon, it's pretty cool because it's stood the test of time, this thing has been around forever. So was that your idea, to show that this thing has been around since, the High Republic?
Not our idea. In fact, so much thought and creativity went into this by the people, the sort of tag team of Lucasfilm and the Imagineering. So there was a bit of a backstory already in place when Will and I boarded. Notice the verb I used there. When we started, so there was, and you'll see some of this. There were some documents about the history of the ship, and so they had some major markers. But it was very interesting to me that this ship spans. It came into it was launched during the High Republic, and when you board it as a guest. It's in the era of the first order. So it is a wide, hundreds of years. And the cool thing about both Galaxy's Edge and this is okay, well, we know sort of a framework of, what I would like to do going from point A to point B. We start with a framing story, which I won't go into too much details, but that's sort of set in the in the now, if you will. and then it's like each issue we can explore something that happened in the past. But then I get to pitch some characters that I want to, I want to use, people like Afra and Greedo in the Galaxy's Edge, and then this time around I got to use like Anakin and Ventress and Lando and Hondo, and like we just basically pitched things, and no one said no to any of them.
It's pretty awesome.
So one of the characters that is new, that I was wondering if this was already a Lucasfilm Marvel thing, or if this was a you thing, and that's Crimson Jack.
So I have to credit my editor Mark Panicia, who is he, like I and like many other people, grew up with the original Marvel run of Star Wars. And so we've gradually introduced some of those characters back into canon. Like obviously Valance was his baby. He wanted to get him back in there, and so he wanted to get Crimson Jack. The one major difference, without spoiling anything, but you can kind of tell from the preview, is that he's now in the later era as opposed to the
Age of Empire.
We moved him around, but he's a fun character. He's kind of just this big blustery kind of guy. So it'd be interesting to see where he goes from here.
I love his story, and I mean, this is the guy. Crimson Jack is the one with the mustache. I mean, this guy is great, and it seems that he talks about himself in the third person. Love it. So I can't wait to see this guy get expanded some more. The question I did have for you is this the first time that you've been able to dabble into the High Republic?
Yes. It's I've watched from afar. I know DJ, I know Daniel, and I know, of course, Charles is a good friend, and I got to ask Cavan a lot of questions, because the thing with, I've read a lot of the High Republic as a fan, but I'm not dialed into the sort of the behind the scene plan. So this was the trickiest of the issues, because you can't really, like, they have these intricate plans that they're building towards, right? And you can't parachute in and screw it all up. So Cavan very basically described sort of where some of these characters were, where they were going, and like, so we nailed like the slot where this storyline would make sense. Burry is like one of my favorite favorite characters in the High Republic, so he's kind of fun, although I struggle a lot writing Wookiee dialogue. I bought a whole bunch of like older Star Wars trades from the original Marvel run, just to see sort of how they did Chewbacca's growling. So I definitely it's like Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Like a lot more goes into it just than him saying it. So it's kind of the similar for me. But I didn't really know. I only knew what was in print at that time when I started running, but they were working on this whole,
they're in a different phase by the time you were.
Yeah, and basically stuff that landed, in this current batch of books. So like, I had to be very careful, how I did it. But this is a pretty self-contained story, like,
When you were talking with Cavan Scott, did he say like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna be breaking everybody's heart"? Did he say anything like that? So like maybe you would like try to write a more uplifting.
I just assume when these guys write it that they're going to stab me through the heart with a lightsaber, metaphorically.
Yeah.
It's
like Borreaga's master, like, the moment you see her, like, in the comic, I'm like,
no. It's been tough. It's been a tough read.
Obviously that dates when our story is happening. But here's the thing though, like, let's take a moment to appreciate this. No one knew what the High Republic was 12 months ago, a little bit more than, and these amazing authors and artists on the comics, like they created these characters that you did not know anything about just over a year ago, and you care about them, and this is this whole new thing, and that's just an amazing feat of engineering that they did, emotional engineering, so yeah, it was fun to play with these characters, just, you know, even for this one and done sort of adventure.
Yeah.
Definitely really got everybody invested. That's why I was like, I'm reading, you know, I was reading Halcyon and I was just like, oh, Nib, man.
So you've read it already, I assume, right? You guys
Yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it's just it's really cool to see all of this stuff that you get to really dip your toes into, you know, and all these eras. I'm loving every second of it.
Yeah. Speaking of hold on, let me back this up.
No worries.
Damn it, Dan, it just happened to me and I just lost my my whole train of thought. Let's see. Oh, I'm going to be editing the shit out of this. Okay. All right. So when you talk so when you talk about bringing characters back, like Crimson Jack, you brought him back. Yeah, you know, you guys brought him back. How daunting was it to bring back Valance and then fit him in to this world, like with the Bounty Hunters comic?
Well, so the good thing for me is Valance was brought back very briefly in the Solo Imperial Cadet series, like just very briefly, and then in Target Vader. But when I got him, I kind of wanted to make him like I had a very I wanted to nudge him a little bit more to sort of like how I was interested in writing him, which was basically as this person who, you know, had experienced this tremendous physical trauma and like was repaired, but he was still repairing himself inside. You know, I wanted him to be that vulnerable kind of thing because, like, you know, I remember him almost, I was a kid back then, but I remember him being almost more of a villain in the original Marvel run.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he is so cruel towards droids. He is redeemed before dying horribly in that run. But I like the idea of him being this basically trying to be this good person, but he's just rebuilding his life. It's not the life he imagined, and he had this horrible thing happen to him, and, you know, he's trying to find his way. And I just figured like I related to that more than if he was like this just badass action star only. You know what I mean? Like, so I wanted to, you know, and we kind of torture him a bit throughout the series.
Yeah.
We're kind of cruel to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'm the main culprit, but yeah, it's
I mean, he gained and lost the love of his life, and then he
damn near lost his fault. That was his fault.
Yeah, true.
It's like, how long was she supposed to wait?
Yeah. He's like, oh, who's that guy? Oh, yeah. I've been gone a while.
I said that. I was like, I don't like if she's, you know, a strong character, she's not going to be waiting for him for 10 years to get his act together. She's going to move on. So yeah, that was kind of important. And then that left him even lonelier, you know, like he's just completely isolated.
And he's pretty much he's kind of screwed right now. Like he's like, you know, Vader, and then they put him, you know, like totally back together, you know, but now he's in the service of Vader, and that's, ask anyone, that's never a good thing.
Yeah,
it's never a good thing. And then, you know, now he's in this. At first, I thought it was Inferno Squad, and I was like, oh, they're bringing Inferno Squad, but it's, you know, it's what's the name of the squad? Oh, how am I missing the name of the squad?
Yeah. Well, right now, you're caught up with Darth Vader, right? Right now, he's been sort of moved from that into sort of running this team of heroes for Darth Vader. So I want to, you know, he might go back eventually into the command, you know, that TIE Fighter Squadron, but yeah, without going into details on the Inferno Squad, those are characters I would love to visit at some point. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
I think I understand why people thought that. There was a cover that might have been slightly misleading.
It was the symbol, and then I'm like, oh, wait, it's blue. So it's
I saw that. I saw that. And I was like, okay, I understand why why people thought that.
And it's really cool. Like, you've got to like dip your toes. Like, I keep saying that, but in like all of these different eras, like with your Star Wars Allegiance run, that was really cool to read into. You got to do the Empire Ascendancy, Ascendant, and I the one thing I wanted to ask you about. Now, I'm gonna try to frame this into like I don't want to bring up too much of like what happened when Bounty Hunters like couple issues came out. There was there was a little pushback, and it was due to a certain character that we thought maybe got taken out to
Yeah.
push the story
Yeah.
to push Valance's story forward.
Right.
But you know, it's just, I mean, you must have been like sitting there like, just wait until we finish the story, like, you know, and like, how bad did it, like, did you want to just tell people like, no,
Well,
it's not what you think?
100%. Like, first and foremost, I want to say about that is like the anger comes from a place like totally justified in that that's an
Right.
important issue. The thing that I learned, because when I started this, it's a serialized story, and so I'm thinking like well ahead, and it never occurred to me that people would judge something in like a snapshot, you know what I mean,
Right.
and not the full story, because I thought the only people interested in this would be continual readers. And so what happened was a panel got shared, you know, at social media, and I was like, you know, basically the character is Tonga, this character that I created.
Oh, you know, and that's the other thing. Like,
Paolo.
How am I pronouncing that? Because I say Tonga.
Tonga.
Just Tonga.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I know.
So Tonga, she's shot. It looks like she's shot through the chest. And then like that's the end of issue 4, and then in issue 5 there's the climactic fight between Valance and Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
And then the spaceship blows up, and then issue 4, right after that came out, is when there was some backlash. And in issue 5, at the end of the last page, it's very brief because I didn't want to give it too much away.
Yeah.
There's a escape pod that you see briefly, so you know somebody got off. So it could only be one of 2 people, right? So, but the thing is, you don't see her again for a few issues, and there was like a production delay because of COVID. So it ended up being like, I don't know, maybe 5 months between. So then she came back, and it kind of had lost steam by then anyway. But yeah. So she's a kind of favorite of mine. You know, and the thing is, I'm very cruel to all these characters, but also we do play a little bit with like cliffhangers and things like that. So it's going to look like someone is doomed. And then, you know, through the miracle of comics, they get out of it. But yeah, so it was a life lesson for me, because I think like what I learned is sometimes, like, you know, with imagery, you just got to be like maybe a little bit more careful. You know, but again, I mean, I understood where it came from, like the sort of, I think everyone's heart was in the right place. It's just, I obviously couldn't say, no, she's fine.
Yeah, right.
It's this is the longer story here, but, and it also, it impacts her character, because what happened was she was sort of bent on revenge for her brother. And I don't know if you remember that page, but on the opposite page, you see her brother was shot by Boba Fett in the exact same way. And so this cycle of revenge or whatever, like, basically leads her to the same point.
Mm-hmm.
And she's changed by that. So like that impacts her story. There's some references to that later on. So like it was sort of planned, maybe not planned as well as I should have, but it was, you know, it was all sort of part of a larger story.
Nice. Speaking of Boba Fett, in this bounty hunter series, you get to like basically play around with his story and see, like, you know, get to do all the cool things that people know Boba to be, and like how he is as a bounty hunter. Like, how do you feel about where like his character development now from where you got to like, you know, write him, and then how he's being written now in the book of Boba Fett? Like, is it, you know, like, I guess, like, yeah, how does it feel to, like, you know, see this change in this guy? Like, is it really satisfying? Or,
well, like when I got to write Boba Fett, it was really for that first arc, and it was very limited to what we could do. And I sort of saw him almost like a, you know, in this context, he was so pissed off at Nakano Lash that, like, he's almost like a force of nature. It was almost like like a Jason from Friday the 13th. So you're not getting much like into his inner, you know, thought processes. And Charles Soule really did a great job with War of the Bounty Hunters and sort of making him basically a protagonist, and really kind of like that was just a great depiction of Boba Fett, I think, especially that Alpha issue, which is just like one of my favorites ever. I think like what you're seeing now is an older Boba Fett, changed by this horrific experience in the Sarlacc pit, and then the time he spent with I don't know how much I'm spoiling for people who haven't seen the show yet, but like all these things that obviously he's a different person than he was a few years earlier when when we were playing around with him. So like I don't think there's anything, I think that's great. You don't want the character to be the same thing through like 30 years of continuity. Like,
I agree. Yeah, totally agree.
Got to be some change,
Yeah,
like
still a badass too.
Yeah,
still a badass too.
And I think in the Bounty Hunters run that he was in, that you written for him, for me, I didn't take him so much as some kind of a villain, because like if there was the Age of Republic book where Django is instilling in him, your reputation, and you have to. You have to keep that up and make sure that people know who know about you and know what you can do and all that stuff. And I think that because what Nakano Lash did, that messed up Boba's reputation a bit. Am I sort of on the right track with like why he was?
I mean, that's what he felt at the time. Like he felt betrayed and so like he's probably overreacting.
was it the
Get some therapy, dude?
Was it War of the Bounty Hunters where Forlom and Zuckuss, like he just like kind of just oh man, those poor guys.
Well, he pretty much just gets like has his way with all the bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Bosk, Valance. I feel like, one of the things I wanted to do with that first arc is show, because I was sort of introducing Valance to readers who hadn't, were too young maybe to read the original Marvel series, maybe didn't see Target Vader, so a lot of people, it was their first introduction, but they know the classic bounty hunters. And I always wanted it to be like a little bit more of an ensemble book with, a lot of these bounty hunters. But in order, excuse me, to make him, to show how significant he is, I wanted him to have this knockout, drag-out fight with Boba Fett and just lose. You know what I mean? Like he's right there. Like he's almost as good, but not quite.
Yeah.
So like Boba Fett is the sort of the alpha, but I wanted Valance to be in that conversation. Like the Thing and the Hulk. Like you kind of probably have to give it to the Hulk, but the Thing can.
Yeah, he's going to give him a little run. He's going to give him a run for his money. What I'm loving right now in the Bounty Hunters, well, besides everything that's going on, I'm not just trying to blow smoke up your ass. I'm just saying, like, it's the comic. It's one of my favorites, and what I'm loving right now is what I call the Suicide Squad, with Tonga and Losha and thank you for bringing any aspect of the Kanji Club into continuity, like just like back in continuity, and we get to see a little bit like Tasu Leech's. That guy's just like, I just want to fight everyone. I love that that's happening.
Thank you. So I love the character. He was just, that cameo was so great in The Force Awakens, and I figured I could ask, because you figure The Force Awakens is about a little bit more than 30 years afterwards. So he's probably like in his late 40s there, so like he'd be like a teenager, and he grew up in the fighting pit, so we know he's a badass fighter. So he sort of becomes really a different character over time, but right now he's I wouldn't say naive, but kind of, you know what I mean? He's like so exuberant, and eventually he becomes later, like what we know from The Force Awakens is like he becomes this character who doesn't, like, he won't speak basic because it like burns his tongue. He's so bitter about something. So we're like laying some of the piping, of sort of how he goes from here to there. But he's just a fun character. He's just like, he just loves like the chaos and the fighting.
Yeah.
He's just overconfident. I'm actually right now writing the script for 25. Nice. And he has a fight sequence that tops anything else he's done so far. And he's like so overmatched, but he doesn't even think he's overmatched.
Right.
So but he also is like, he never wears a shirt. Like
he's like, I got pants and boots, I'm good.
So he's fun. I love writing this as a team book. some of these, I wanted to have a mix of, a couple of new characters and, some of the bounty hunters. Because I think when this was first announced, people kind of expected a lot of these classic Empire Strikes Back bridge scene bounty hunters in it. And so, from day one, we've included them. It's just like we were building towards a point when they, most, if not all of them, would be together. And instead of, the first arc, they're all sort of fighting each other, and now they're sort of on the same team.
Yeah.
So I'm having fun with that dynamic.
And I just love seeing this different side of them, like seeing this different side, or because there's not much that we could go on, like in the past with Zuckuss. There wasn't much to go on for, and now we do, and I think it's great. And
you know what he looks like naked.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
Oh boy.
And Bosk, just seeing I guess would you consider it a lighter side of Bosk, like a little bit?
Yeah, in the Clone Wars, he was on a bounty hunter's team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he can play well with others, even though like we kind of think of him as a loner. So I kind of wanted to, you have to wonder sometimes about his motivation. Is he going to eat you in your sleep? But like for the most part, like he can be on a team. So he's my favorite of the bounty hunters. So of the original, of the classic bounty hunters. So I definitely was going to have him on the team. And Zuckuss and 4LOM, and yeah, that's how we pronounce it officially. Instead of 4LOM. But so they ended up like I just thought of them as a Bert and Ernie from hell, and. Like,
it comes across. Oh my God!
Yeah, the droid is of course Bert, like slightly annoyed, and Zuckuss is more like the kind of. But yeah, so they were kind of fun because they're so devoted to each other. They're each other's best friend, and I like playing off that dynamic.
It's like that beats out Poe and Finn is like my favorite bromance in Star Wars. It's Zuckuss and 4LOM for sure.
I got to write both.
Yeah.
So, with the success of bounty hunters, because it's been hot and it's been so successful. Like, was that like the War of the Bounty Hunters, like multi comic book series? Was that built off of this series that you were doing? Like, did they just kind of make that up on their own?
This is all like the main person, the mastermind behind this is Charles Soule. He had this idea, and it was just like, okay, someone steals Han Solo and Carbonite from Boba Fett, and then it just escalates into this whole thing. And I mean, we have regular sort of summit meetings and like weekly Zoom meetings so that all the writers and editors are on the same page. And he was like, I think it was close to 2 years before it actually came out that he was sort of starting the game plan. But the cool thing is he made it this collaborative thing. So we all found our ways into that story and like took like a piece of the puzzle. So it was just like really collaborative. And the other thing too, like I can't say enough, the artists, like each of these books,
beautiful.
Marvel made a great decision, I think, in getting the sort of the four main Star Wars books into the same era. And so that we could do things like crossovers, and we can have, we have a character that started off as a fairly sort of straightforward villain, Vakara, who then Alyssa takes and makes her cooler. And then it's like Alyssa Wong from Afra. And
yes.
And so we have a lot of this sort of, Deathstick, a character from a video game, like I use her a bit and then hand her off to Alyssa, and Alyssa uses her. It's really cool. And then Charles, has her, and like all this kind of stuff. So it's and it's a credit to the editors, Mark and Danny, for like we Zoom week in, week out, and like really have fun spitballing ideas, and like we're really in tune with each other. And then I was going to say the other great thing too is these artists, like it's just a murderer's row of talent. Like I'm gifted. I don't know if you can see, like I have two original pieces of art. Like one is that's from Paolo from my Mace Windu story, and then
Oh,
the other one
cool.
is Robert Gill from Old Man Quill,
Nice.
a Galactus thing. So like, this is like my writing desk. I always look at it. In the case of Bounty Hunters, Paolo Villanelli is like
Yeah.
he
Loved his stuff.
Yeah.
his action scenes are so kinetic. Like it does not
Yes.
feel like a 2-dimensional page. It just doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved Paolo's his art. It just explodes off the page. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And I noticed that your floating shelf of Black Series
Yes.
figures. It's
So these
awesome.
these are specifically both Star Wars and Marvel like series that I got to write, or
Nice.
characters that I love that I got to write.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
Lightsaber also there.
Yeah.
Mace Windu lightsaber, because like my first Star Wars story was about this lightsaber. So I have
Oh, yes. Oh, the
Sorry.
Galaxy's Edge special.
Yeah.
Yes. I
So-
love the case that it comes in. We'll be getting
Yeah.
ours soon, Chris. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Mace Windu's.
we'll go one of these days.
That's beautiful.
I have my blade somewhere. The
Yeah.
bulb. But
That is
anyway.
so awesome.
That's dope.
I'm a little jealous, but that is so
Yeah.
freaking cool.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, it can be distracting if you start playing with it while you're
So, like, and I did have a question, but I don't know how much. I don't know how much you can answer because I don't want the Disney snipers on me for this one. But when we're talking about those main 4 comics that are within the same era, is that kind of format? Do you know if that's going to maybe continue into post? Should I be asking that? Like, I feel like I shouldn't.
No,
be
I think
asking this,
it's going to continue for a while. I mean, I can't tell you definitively, like, how long, but it's ongoing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what I can say. About.
It's
like eras past Return of the Jedi, like something like that. Like I don't.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
If you think about it,
I shouldn't be asking that. I shouldn't be asking that. I'm sorry.
I think it'll be a while that we're in this sweet spot between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. I mean, if you think about it, and I'm not divulging any secret thing, but if you just think about it, like, or I've thought about it, the Mandalorian and a lot of the Disney Plus shows are sort of talking about the time after Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like this is a time, especially for me, selfishly, with Bounty Hunters, those characters aren't directly involved too much in, return the things that happen in Return of the Jedi and beyond that we've seen on screen, with the exception of Boba Fett, obviously.
Right.
But like, so I kind of feel like we can play in this sandbox for a while.
I was about to say, what a great sandbox to be playing in.
Yeah.
What a cool.
It's a great
bit of
time because the Empire is still, in charge and formidable, and the rebellion is on the run.
Yeah.
They've gotten their asses kicked on Hoth. And there is time between, as Han Solo says when he gets like, I've been, he's been frozen and he's missed like all these, like all of a sudden Lando's a general. I mean, that takes time.
And like
Luke
Luke's
is
growth.
clearly has had more training, and so like there's time.
And it's the most like I love that this is happening. All these comics are happening within this era because it's the era that I wanted to see the most. Because like Return of the Jedi, if I had to pick a favorite, that's probably my favorite of the saga. But just getting any stories between Empire and Jedi, I'm so glad that that's being fleshed out, and I'm just loving everything that's happening.
And there's a second prong to the comics, which is the High Republic comics that Marvel is doing, obviously there's also like there's IDW and other things going on. But for Marvel, like the High Republic stuff has just been amazing too.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's like you have multiple
eras going on.
Eras to play with.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know this, Ethan, but we met you in Chicago.
I remember.
I was going to say, because there's a little thing right here.
Oh,
look at us all hanging out.
Yeah.
Just,
we were like literally as far away as we could have been.
Yeah. I remember it so perfectly because like we were, it was like all three of you guys. I think even Charles was just in that area too.
Yeah, Charles and
yeah,
John
Tyler
Tyler
Christopher,
Christopher, yeah.
yeah, and Greg Pak, which I
Yeah.
loved his Darth
That was the
Vader
first time I
series.
met him. That
Oh,
was the
really?
first time
Really?
I met him, because at that time, this is pre Bounty Hunters.
Yeah.
The first thing I was doing was Galaxy's Edge, and it was delayed for some reason. And I don't remember why it was delayed, because it was done.
Yeah.
So I had nothing to sign. Like, they flew me out there and I had nothing to sign.
I know.
Like, I had to sign preview books.
Yeah.
It's like, it was supposed to be out this last week.
Yeah.
But it's
I
not.
swear I got something.
Yeah, I swear.
I'm Ethan Sachs, man.
I'm not a con artist. I do have a Star Wars book. But yeah, Greg took me under. He never met me before. Took me under his wing, gave me some great advice, just career advice, and privileged to call him a friend now.
Yeah, so cool. I was like, it's really great to have that picture and those moments, and to be able to just like see how things have developed. And I mean, look at you. You got like this Bounty Hunter series has gone up. You said issue 25 is mapped out. Like, is it going to go any further than 25?
I hope so, unless you know something I don't.
I just want to make sure, because we,
more
there's
find out.
like, so far what we've noticed, like with the Star Wars comic books, they've Darth Vader made it to 25. Yes. Poe, how far did Poe go, Chris? Like
did I go into the 40s? No, that was like into the 30s, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, like,
into the 30s.
There's only been a few titles that have gone as far as up into the 20s and on. So I mean, it's really great, man. It's something to be like really proud of, because it's definitely rare to see so far with these Star Wars comics, to see them go so many issues. So I'm digging it.
I had never had an ongoing before, and now I'm working on year 3.
Spectacular.
Yeah, and we have a fifth pillar to this, which is Han Solo and Chewbacca, which is not set in the exact same time, but it's Mark Guggenheim is in on these in our group.
Nice. That's awesome. And that's a dude from Arrow, right?
Yes.
Mark Guggenheim.
Yeah. He's written a lot of comic book stuff over the years. Great stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
So here's just like a kind of like the everybody question. So when and like how did your Star Wars journey begin as a fan? Like
okay, I'm old. I'm outing myself as a 49-year-old right now. I turned 49 a few weeks ago. I was 4 years old when the first movie came out, and it is one of my earliest memories. It changed my life. Like, I've seen A New Hope, I've seen more than 70 times. I've seen Empire Strikes Back probably more than 60 times. But I remember very vividly that first time being in that theater as a 4-year-old, and the memory is so vivid of John Williams' score and the Star Destroyer like coming overhead. And I remember turning to my father and him smiling back at me, and like, not to get all sentimental, but my father passed away in 1995, and it's like he's still alive. Like, the memory is so vivid. Like, I can remember what he sounded like. And I was 4, and that was 45 years ago. So then, as an entertainment journalist, I do think it kind of pushed me into sort of pop culture. So as an entertainment journalist, I've written a lot of stories for the New York Daily News and Wizard Magazine and stuff like that about Star Wars. I've interviewed George Lucas. I got the privilege of interviewing Carrie Fisher for Force Awakens. I've interviewed
so cool.
I've interviewed Anthony Daniels and Mark Hamill, Billy D. Williams. So like, I've definitely and a lot of the new Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. Like, I've interviewed a lot of these people, and so I got to work this beat that the paper called the Geek Beat, because I was at a newspaper, and most of the people were older and like could not give less of a damn about this stuff. So I got to do comic books and Star Wars and Game of Thrones eventually, and The Walking Dead, and all this kind of stuff that I just naturally loved. Got to cover it, and so. This is a long answer, but this is how I got into comics too.
Totally okay.
One of my first cover story ever for the New York Daily News was in 2001, and I did this big profile of the sort of the hotshot young guns that were saving Marvel from bankruptcy. Two guys by the name of Joe Quesada and Bill Jemas, and I did this big cover story on them. And I ended up staying like in touch with Joe Quesada. We became friends over the years. Like I've known him now for, since then. So 2016, we're at a Mets game. Joe's a big Mets fan, and a few weeks earlier, I had done a story with the actor Paul Blake, who played Greedo, and he was so funny. And I asked him about the whole thing about who shot first, and like, does it bother him that a generation of people think Greedo missed from across the table, this bounty hunter? And so he did this whole like almost like a stand-up routine. It was so funny. He's like, well, I know he's myopic with those eyes, but like, maybe he should have been a flower arranger. And he did. I mean, I'm not doing it justice. He was so funny. But he did say, I will say this. I was there on the set. The script says Han shoots alien. It does not say alien shoots misses or anything. It says Han shoots alien. So then I'm a big movie fan, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be funny if there was a story about the murder investigation into this, and like different witnesses have different accounts, like Rashomon, this novel that was made into a famous Kurosawa movie. So we're at this Mets game, and I was like, Joe, I know this is a weird question. I have an idea for a comic book story. On the off chance, like, would you read a spec script? And he was not editor-in-chief at that time. He was higher up at that, So he was like, sure, whatever. Like, it was not encouraging, but And so I spent a few weeks, and I reverse engineered. I'd never written a comic book script. Reverse engineered this because I've read many. Reverse engineered what I liked about certain scripts, pacing and stuff like that. Contacted Lucasfilm because I had a contact in the PR department. She put me in touch with Pablo Hidalgo, who and I was like, what can I do, and can I do with continuity? Can I use this character, this kind of thing? And so I ended up using writing the spec script, and I had to figure out why anyone would care at Mos Eisley about a murder investigation. So I made the homicide cop Kitster, who was Anakin's friend from the first, because in terms of official canon, he's basically only in there was this whole extended universe thing with him, but as of now, like, he's just in Phantom Menace and the deleted scene where Anakin is beating the stuffing out of Greedo, baby Greedo. So it's like he knows Greedo from his childhood, so this is personal for him. It's just like, so there was this whole. So I did the script and sent it and didn't hear anything. So it's like, okay, well, it was just on a lark anyway. I just thought it was a funny story.
Yeah, so, it is. That's pretty awesome.
So that was like June. Fast forward to September. My wife's Japanese, and we went to Japan to visit my in-laws. The plane lands back in New York on September 7th, 2016. I turn my phone back on, and there's an email from Joe, and basically says, hey man, this is one of the best first scripts I've ever read. I think you can do this for a living. And right around this end, he put me in touch with Axel Alonso, who was editor-in-chief at the time, and Axel loved the script. And one thing led to another. The script was now unpublished. Just I guess it was probably, I don't really know why, but it was not published. So it's basically fan fiction at this stage. But it got my foot in the door, and a few months later led to me being able to pitch for Old Man Hawkeye. So
I was gonna say,
long-winded. Yeah,
that's amazing, though. I mean, like, your introduction into writing comic books was Star Wars, and that's fantastic.
I will say this, like, it wasn't just like a lark for Joe. I mean, he knew me for many years, and he knew my writing as a journalist, and so it was not like I was a fan that stuffed it under his door or something. So I think it allowed it to read it, but he also waited for a while. He later said like he was kind of convinced it was not going to be good. So it was like, how do I have this conversation with him or whatever? So it was kind of stalling. Yeah. But it did work out. Yeah.
Not to keep you forever, but how was it interviewing Carrie? I mean, God,
it was pretty, it's funny because I told that story with my 4-year-old memory of my father, and I was like, he's still alive and all this kind of stuff. I've told it to George Lucas, Carrie Fisher, and Mark Hamill. And, one of the reasons cynically I do it, is like, when you're in a fairly short interview, you got to break the ice and things like
Mhm.
that. So I just, like to have this personal connection. And it was also a meaningful thing for me.
Yeah.
So George Lucas was like, okay, like it's clearly uncomfortable. Mark Hamill was kind of interested, but then it got him on a complete different story, like a non sequitur and nothing to do with it, because like he's so funny and so interesting, and his mind is like, I think, going a million miles an hour. So like
Mhm.
he was already moving on to, like it inspired a thought in him that brought him somewhere else. But he was a fantastic interview. And then Carrie Fisher did this. Like she was moved. And I was like, wow, she was my first crush. She was like,
Yeah.
I have her on such a pedestal.
Yeah.
But one funny thing, we did the interview in the Hotel Carlisle, which is a famous New York hotel, and they have like this like lounge on the first floor. So she was seated on one side of the table. I was seated like on a lower seat. No, I mean, just coincidentally, that's the seats that were there. And Gary Fisher dog was like on a higher chair. So it's like I felt like that was the
order.
ranking.
Yeah.
I respect your place in the hierarchy, Gary.
Yeah. Oh,
You're the alpha.
that's right. He's looking down at you, the dog. That's
It's
great.
a great dog. But yeah, so that was. But with Allegiance, it was really important to me because that was after she died.
Yeah.
And this is like an official prequel to Rise of Skywalker, and she was a major character. And so there were two things that I really wanted to do as my tribute to her, because it was emotional for me to write her. One, I wanted to have her real life daughter in a scene, and there's a scene where, she's about to touch the shoulder to like comfort her, and then she realizes the rank thing and she pulls back. But it was like a little bit of a symbolic thing for me to have them in the same frame, the same panel. And then the other thing is, like, I had this Braveheart type speech where she's trying to convince the Mon Calamari government to release this fleet that they desperately need. And to have that, she's talking about what she sacrificed and all this kind of stuff. So that was my little emotional tribute to her.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. Now I gotta reread that series now.
Yeah, I'm very happy with. I mean, it was so much fun. I basically had the sort of bromance with Finn and Poe, and then I had the Rose and Ray also getting some time together, because I thought that was kind of a fun pairing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Chris, you got anything else?
Let's see. This is a roundabout. I wonder if this is happening / request.
Okay.
All right. So we talk about fathers now. My dad passed in 2018, and for me, when Carl Weathers was announced as Grief Karga for Mandalorian, I was overjoyed. Carl Weathers has always been like a hero of mine. Like, just he looks so much like my father. So of course I was traumatized at 10 years old when I watched Ivan Drago beat the ever loving shit out of him. But I'll never get over that. I'll never.
That is a traumatic.
If
he dies, he dies. Yeah.
Listen. There's 10-year-old me watching this on the movie screen and just tears.
Yeah.
My brother looks over at me. He's like, nerd, so with Grief Karga being in Star Wars now, Carl Weathers being in Star Wars, that has automatically become my favorite character. And seeing as he is part of the Bounty Hunters Guild, is there a chance?
I will say this: it's very hard to use those characters because, like, not saying never or anything, we don't always know, what's going to happen in their storyline. So it's very hard. It's almost like playing with live dynamite. You know what I mean? It can be done, but you run the risk. Like, the most of the sort of the original trilogy characters, where their arcs take you. So like you can do things with them. But the characters that are currently, like, I mean, I would feel uncomfortable using Obi-Wan right now, right? If I was writing a story because I don't know what they're doing, because obviously for very important reasons, it's top secret. So like you wouldn't necessarily, and I don't know that they would want me to play with that. So I will say this: I would love to, but probably not anytime soon.
But you're saying there's a chance.
Yes.
A young buff grief cargo, possibly.
Sure, there's a chance.
Just walks around with his shirt off.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
boxing gloves on.
There's a chance now that Disney owns the Alien franchise that there could be cross-pollination. Who knows?
Oh wow!
I'm kidding.
I mean, they made Conan an Avenger, so
they did.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure aliens will never be. I mean, those aliens will not be in Star Wars.
Oh wow!
But in terms of a non-zero chance, I guess. Yes.
Yeah. But those Marvel books are awesome. Those Alien comics, I read those as well.
Oh yes, those are
so
fantastic.
dope.
I was like, which Marvel?
Yeah.
Yes, those are fantastic.
Well, Ethan, I mean, thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure. I look forward
talking
to
with us. This
doing
is
this
great.
again. Yeah.
Absolutely. Dude.
Definitely. Hopefully, do you have plans to go to Anaheim?
Not
for celebration.
Yet. Not yet.
Okay.
If I'm invited in an official capacity, I'll probably go. I'm probably not going to go otherwise. Just we're a little tapped out on the vacation budget, so
yeah, gotcha.
Not to overshare. Not to overshare.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, thank you again. Thank you everybody for watching, and we hope you enjoyed.
Oh no.
And we all hope you enjoyed this interview with the Broaxium Covert with Ethan Sachs.
Thank you guys.